My husband planned our dream vacation in Mandarin calls, not knowing my parents were from Beijing. I was folding laundry in our bedroom when I heard Derek on the phone in his office down the hall, speaking rapid Mandarin to someone he called Lily. My hands stopped moving on the towel I was holding because my husband didn't speak Mandarin. At least that's what he'd told me for the 8 years we'd been married. I'd grown up speaking it with my parents who immigrated from Beijing before I was born, but Derek always claimed he only knew basic phrases from business trips to Shanghai. I moved closer to his office door and listened to him discussing flight arrangements and hotel reservations in flawless Mandarin, better than mine actually, with tones so precise he must have studied for years. He was laughing about something with this Lily person, their conversation easy and familiar in a way that made my stomach drop. I pulled out my phone and started recording, my journalism training kicking in automatically, even though my hands were shaking. Derek said in Mandarin that he'd tell me the conference got moved to Seattle, that I'd never question a work trip because I trusted him completely. Lily laughed and responded that 8 years was impressive, that most men couldn't maintain a cover story that long. He told her the flight to Bali left on Friday, and he'd already transferred another $20,000 to her account for expenses. My brain struggled to process what I was hearing because this wasn't just an affair, this was a completely separate life he'd constructed, using a language he knew I spoke but had somehow convinced himself I couldn't understand well enough to catch him. I saved the recording to 3 different cloud accounts before I even stopped shaking. The bedroom suddenly felt smaller, like the walls had moved closer while I was standing there trying to figure out how many conversations I'd missed over the years, how many phone calls in restaurants or quick exchanges at parties where he spoke Mandarin thinking I wouldn't fully comprehend. I went downstairs and made coffee with mechanical precision, my hands going through motions while my mind raced through 8 years of marriage looking for other signs I'd missed. Derek came down 20 minutes later smiling and kissed my cheek before grabbing his travel mug. He mentioned casually that his conference in Seattle got moved up to this Friday and he'd be gone for a week, maybe longer if the meetings ran over. I asked which hotel he'd be staying at and he said the Fairmont without hesitation, the lie smooth and practiced. I nodded and told him I'd miss him, watching his face for any sign of guilt or nervousness. Nothing registered except mild affection and the slight distraction of someone already mentally planning their trip. He left for work and I sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone, the recording app still open showing that 11-minute conversation that had just demolished my understanding of my own marriage. My parents lived 40 minutes away in the same house where I grew up, the walls covered with calligraphy my father practiced and photographs from their life in Beijing before they came to America. I drove there without calling first because I needed to see their faces when I played them the recording. My mother opened the door and immediately knew something was catastrophically wrong, pulling me inside while calling for my father. We sat in their living room and I played the recording on speaker, watching their expressions shift from confusion to shock to the particular kind of rage that comes from watching your child's heart break in real time. My father asked to hear it again, his finger following along like he was reading invisible subtitles in the air. When it finished the second time, he looked at me and said in Mandarin that Derek's accent was northern Chinese, probably Beijing or Tianjin, that he'd been trained by native speakers for years to sound that authentic. My mother pulled out her laptop and started searching for the name Lily combined with Derek's company, her fingers flying across the keyboard with the determined energy of someone who'd worked as a research librarian for 30 years. She found a LinkedIn profile for Lily Zhao who worked in Derek's company's Hong Kong office, her photo showing a woman in her early 30s with the kind of polished beauty that came from expensive maintenance. The profile said she'd transferred to the Seattle office 6 months ago, which aligned perfectly with when Derek started taking more frequent business trips. My father was already on the phone with his brother in Beijing, speaking quickly about needing information on someone, giving him Lily's full name and asking him to check marriage records and property registrations. His brother owned a private investigation firm and had connections throughout government offices that could access databases American investigators couldn't touch. Within an hour, my uncle called back with information that made the situation exponentially worse than a simple affair. To see the full story, click the link below or go on my channel.